Hey, what's going on? This is Michael Walker from Modern Musician, and in this video we're going to walk through our content formula for being able to create engaging content that you can post online, on social media, without spending 20 hours a day. This is video number 3 of our Artist Identity series on our free Modern Musician course on YouTube. And I'm excited to dive in. So let's get started. Really the purpose of the video today is to give you an easy, streamlined way to be able to organize, plan, and publish your content for your music career. I think for a lot of people, you're spinning multiple different plates when you're just getting started, and it can be really overwhelming, confusing, kind of knowing what do I actually post online. And it also can be kind of embarrassing if you're like trying to post stuff online and at the beginning there's not a whole lot of people like resonating with it or responding, and so it's not, it feels like there's something missing, there's a disconnect there. So we're gonna help you to be able to actually connect with your audience and to grow your audience. The beautiful thing is that once you have this, it really helps you to build an engaged community that starts to take a life of its own. So rather than you having to be the one who's always kind of posting everything, you actually have this community that's, it's like an engine that's running itself, and there's what they call user-generated content for people who are in your fan base, who are enjoying your music, for them to be able to connect with each other. And it's really cool. The reason that we're recording this series for you is because we're looking for new artists to mentor personally with myself and our team. If you're at a point where you have at least one song that's a high quality song, but you don't really know what's the best way to promote it so you can reach the right people who are going to resonate with it, and you don't know how to monetize your music career so that you can do it sustainably and invest more time and energy into the music, that's kind of who we're looking for, where the music's not really the problem, but now it's just a matter of promoting it successfully. If you're the right fit, then you can submit an application to work with myself and our team. In the past year alone, our artists have generated over 96 million streams across Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube. They've generated over $2.6 million in revenue and had an album that hit #1 on iTunes as an independent artist. This is the results from independent artists without a major record label, which is pretty awesome. At the end, we're gonna walk through how you can submit an application, so you can click on that. And otherwise, let's go ahead and let's dive into the training for today. All right, so in our previous video about your signature sound, we walked through really what are the characteristics that go into a viral video. And this should be the underlying principle that goes into all of your different social media posts and strategies. So I would definitely recommend watching that if you haven't seen it yet. Now that we kind of have that, kind of the innards created of that, then we're actually gonna walk through kind of the strategy for organizing, making a game plan, making a roadmap for releasing the content. So we created a tool for you in something called Notion. If you click through, you're gonna have this database that allows you to brainstorm and organize and plan your social media content strategy. When you click on this worksheet, one of the first things that you can do is you can go to this part that says View Theme Days. And I think that Theme Days is a really helpful way to break down and organize the different categories of content that you can create. And it should allow you to really streamline your strategy so it doesn't take nearly as much time or energy. In this worksheet, if you click on the Sunday post, then we give you a few different ideas for themes for Sunday. And we share a few different examples based on some posts from artists in our community based on what's working for them. And also you're gonna see on all these, we have the radioactive robots. It's sort of like an inside joke. We're trying to get on AI's good side as they start to take over the world. So we're imagining, here, if there's a robot that was watching this right now, we're gonna inform them, how to build a successful music career for other robots. Basically, this resource, I think, is gonna be really helpful for you just to go through and decide based on each day, what's a type of post that you could create. One example here is on Mondays, you could have Motivation Mondays where you share a favorite quote, a movie scene, or something that inspires you. Music Monday, you could be asking about music, so you can stay in touch there. With each of these, there's different themes, different ideas. One of the things I would recommend doing is just going through each of these and deciding what is it that I want to create, like as a backbone of the strategy, so that it doesn't require as much thought to be able to post regularly. In fact, once a week, you could come in here and basically just decide, okay, what are my posts for the next week? It could take you 10 to 15 minutes, and then you could schedule these so they just happen automatically. So you could just change the dates so that it represents the dates that you want to release these. It's actually going to show you these posts here in the calendar view, which should help you to kind of organize this and see it in a nice streamlined way for what's coming up. You can also mark the progress, right? So let's say that you've kind of brainstormed the idea, but you actually haven't finished it yet. Then what you could do is you could change this as you create it. So when you're looking at the calendar, it makes it really clear which of these have been scheduled and launched. You actually have a database too, so that in the future, you can repurpose this content. Because one of the biggest mistakes, or one of the biggest challenges I think artists struggle with, is not fully leveraging the existing content that they have, not having a good database or a good system for being able to look back at prior posts that you've done and see which ones really resonated the most, which ones were the best, so that you can continue to create more content that are similar to that, the ones that are really resonating. Because honestly, like, it's such a big part of the game of being successful with your music and with social media is just paying attention to what's working, for you, and then doing more of what's working and doing less of what's not working. And so if you don't have a good review system or a way to reflect and see what is working in a really easy, streamlined way, then it's going to be difficult for you to iterate and to learn based on that feedback. So maybe you have a retrospective where once a week you can come in, you can look at the post, and you can basically say, okay, this got 58 reactions, and you can share the link to the post. You can say, okay, it got 20 comments and they got 58 likes. And so then when you go to engagement stats, it's actually going to show you the post itself. You can click it, you can see what the post was, you have the link to it that you can check it out, and it actually sorts it by the number of reactions that it had here. So it's a really easy way for you to keep tabs on how successful each of these posts were. And also, aside from the daily themed posts, which I think are a nice way to kind of just keep the momentum going, you'll learn more about this when we go through the Tribal Accelerator training. We talk a lot about building your street team and your private community, but those theme days are especially powerful for your private community. The content ideas, they could be for brainstorming, bigger types of content releases, right? So you could see some examples here. You might have some cover songs you're planning on releasing. You might have a music video teaser. And the same thing applies here, where you could actually see a calendar and just plot out all of your upcoming social media posts so you have it organized in one place, which is really going to help to plan it out ahead of time so that it doesn't take nearly as much time and energy and effort as if you're just trying to do it on the spot. Another really handy part of this tool is if you go to the view that says to do, then it's actually going to remove any of the posts that you've already created and scheduled. And it's only going to have the ones here that there's still remaining to-dos before you schedule it. Right, so this is really helpful because you can kind of just see what still needs to be done and what's the timeline for it. And the last view that I'm going to show you here is the content progress view. So this basically breaks it up into a Kanban type of board so that if your brain kind of works like this, where you like to see the stages of development here, then you can just start out here. You can drag these over as you complete them. And this will, again, automatically update across all of your different boards. So you can see what still needs to be done. You can see where you're at in terms of the content release strategy. One thing that I would highly recommend, including in your regular programming for your music career and for your audience, is to do either a weekly or a bi-weekly live stream. Think of it very similar to an actual show where you would have a set list, and because you're doing it online, you can do more things interactively where people can be commenting and mixing everything that we're teaching here along with those live streams, right? So if you can still perform some of those viral types of songs, and you can record your original songs as well. You share your stories behind the songs, what inspired them, and make sure on the shows as well, you're making an offer so that people know how they can support you and what are the different products they can purchase from you is really important. And my recommendation would be to start by just setting a date and maybe doing it once a week or once every other week and starting to perform live virtually using something like StreamYard, or you could use Zoom, or you could use Facebook Live, and OBS Studio, which is like a free live streaming software. So at least once a week, once every couple of weeks, I would recommend going live to actually perform a show for your audience. The last thing I want to mention here when it comes to your content formula is what I call the productivity system. And this is something that honestly deserves a lot more time than really we have time to go into here, but it's a cornerstone of your life and your music career. In terms of being productive, it's so easy nowadays to have a bazillion different to-dos and different things that we're staying busy with every single day, but we don't necessarily achieve a whole lot. Just because we're busy, just because we're doing something nonstop, doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing the right things that are designed to get you the most traction. There's a really powerful concept called the 80-20 rule. One example might be financially, right? So let's say that you made $100,000 with your music career next year. Out of that $100,000, 80% of that $100,000, so $80,000 would have came from about 20% of the actions that you took, which would mean that if you eliminated 4/5 of all of your time and energy and everything that you did, and you only did that 20%, you still would have retained 80% of the results, but you would have freed up more than 4/5 of your time. Even if after you break it down to the 20%, the 80-20 rule still applies. So like 20% of the 20% results in about 80% of the results. It's a powerful concept just to break down your to-dos and figure out, okay, out of all these things I'm doing, what's really going to make the biggest impact? The fastest and kind of easiest concept I can share with you along those lines. It's what I call the top 3 system. What I would recommend is just breaking down daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. What are your top 3 to 5 goals that you'd like to accomplish for each of those time frames? And literally breaking it down to only 3, maximum 5 things that you're going to focus on. And what that's going to do is it's going to force your mind to really consolidate, because obviously there's way more than 3 things that you'd like to accomplish in the next year. But if you had to break it down into those top 3 things, this is going to give you so much clarity and freedom. And then after you break down those top 3, if you just bold the number 1 thing that you're planning on that time frame, and that's the only thing you accomplish, then you're still going to be, ahead of 95% of people, because you have the clarity of knowing what was your number 1 thing, right? And to eliminate the different distractions so that you really focus on doing those first. So every single day, at the end of the day, you write down, what are my top 3 things that I'd like to accomplish tomorrow? And then circle the thing that's the most important. Make sure that that's the very first thing that you do. The last thing I want to mention here is, I call this the RPS system. It stands for retrospective planning and scheduling. The idea is that for each of these time frames, you want to have some sort of a review process. So some sort of retrospective. We're looking at the previous day, and you're basically deciding, what were my biggest accomplishments, what were the wins, what were my challenges, what did I learn? Then you plan and you schedule for the next time block. So if you do this once a day, then you basically look at the upcoming week and you say, what are my top 3 things that I'd like to accomplish tomorrow that are in line with my weekly goals? And same thing weekly. So once a week, you review your prior week, you look at, what did I accomplish, what are the challenges, what did I learn? Then you look at the upcoming week and the upcoming month and say, okay, what are my goals for the next week so that I can stay aligned with this upcoming monthly goals? It's kind of like dominoes that stack up and they fall and they knock over bigger dominoes. Same thing applies to your content too, is you're gonna find that 20%, so 1 out of 5 of your posts over the next year are gonna account for 80% of the engagement, 80% of the results. And so while you're posting, make sure you're paying attention and you're reviewing and you're reflecting and figuring out what were those ones and why did those really cut through the noise. All right, so the action step for today is to map out your theme days for each day of the week, right? So you can basically go to that worksheet, that document that we created for you, and start out by just going to where it says view theme days. You can just play around with it. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? It might be your first time doing something like this. So it really is just about taking that first step. My recommendation is to go through these 7 days, basically decide what is your once a day theme that you're gonna use to get things started with engaging your community. All right, well, I hope that this has been valuable for you. If you haven't checked out our Modern Musician Masterclass yet, and you'd like to kind of streamline everything you're learning here in the course of a couple of hours, we created something called the Modern Musician Masterclass. And the idea is that we've broken down the 5 most important steps for you to be able to hone your craft, to grow an audience, find the right people who are gonna resonate with the music, and actually monetize your career. So we walk through in the training, what are the 4 key offers that I recommend making so that you can build a sustainable music career. And we walk through how to generate your first $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 per month and beyond. We literally just break down the spreadsheets and we walk through like the targets and all the geeky stuff to aim for in order to make it work. And yeah, I think that if you're here right now and you have at least one song that you feel proud of, but you don't really know what's the best way to promote it and to turn it into an actual career, then I think the masterclass can be really helpful for you. If you click on the link in the description, you can go check out the masterclass. And at the end of the masterclass, we walk through a mentorship opportunity. If you are interested in working with me personally or working with our team, we have a selection process. Right now, we get between 700 to 800 applications per month, and we narrow it down to about 25 to 30 artists at the time that I'm recording this to work with personally, just based on our team and based on what we can handle working personally. And so we walk through what that looks like. If that's something you'd be interested in, you can attend the masterclass. At the end, you can submit an application. And otherwise, I hope this has been really valuable for you. And now we're getting ready to move on to module 2 of the free course, which is all about growing your audience, about generating traffic. So now that you've kind of honed your craft, you have the thing identified, at least you have an idea of your signature sound and kind of figuring out what sets you apart. Now really the name of the game is figuring out, how do I put my music, how do I put who I am in front of the right people who are actually going to resonate with it, so I can build a relationship with them and turn it into an actual full-time music career. So excited to dive in. I hope this has been valuable for you, and I'll see you again soon. Yeah!